Hello, this is Gareth from the iMoot team. It's my great pleasure to welcome Jeremy Hopkins from Birmingham City University, who's going to talk about workflow, course quality and user experience. Can I thank him very much for presenting a second time on this presentation. I also appreciate the amount of effort that goes into it. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Gareth. So hello everyone. As Gareth said, I work at Birmingham City University. I'm a MLE VLE support manager, which is an IT role, but use Moodle quite extensively. So it's not just purely technical work that I do at the moment. So this presentation, it's a bit of an eclectic mix, to be honest. It's sort of about workflow, course quality and user experience, and it's really a collection of things that we've done towards that wider aim, which may seem a bit disjointed, but hopefully you'll see that there is a method behind the madness, as it were. I'm hoping that it will be of interest to anyone else who's interested in consistency of Moodle courses, perhaps experienced Moodlers who just want to see what others are doing, or new Moodlers who are just starting out and trying to think of how they want to use Moodle. So I'll start with a brief history of Moodle at BCU. So it was piloted on a redundant server in 2003 and deployed in a live environment in 2004. I joined the university to work with Moodle in 2007, and in the years that followed we added Mahara, Kaltura, Learning Objects Repository. We have Big Blue Button in there as well, added as a hosted service. And we've done things like add single sign-on with other university applications, so that you log into a central, well, it's login at .bcu, and you're logged in then to Moodle, Mahara, your email, things like that. And we've built a private cloud infrastructure to accommodate all this and the growth. We can get about up to 1,300 users online at a time, as reported by Moodle's last users in the 5 minutes block. Over 130 page views a day, so it's quite a busy system. But in 2014 we rebuilt it. So we used to have multiple Moodle instances, and the university was reorganised. It didn't really make sense to carry on with that approach, and one of the reasons for it had been hosting. So because we've got this cloud infrastructure, we're in a better position to host a larger Moodle site. So we migrated 3,000 courses using Moodle's Moosh plugins that allow you to run things from the command line. In our case, we were backing up courses out of the old systems and restoring them in the new one. And we integrated it with a course portal, which was a separate project and something that had already been built. And we hooked that into Moodle's web services to automate rollover and student enrolment. And this is what our Moodle site looked like in 2004. That's just a shot of the sort of single sign-on page, and illustrating that once you're logged in you can get into these applications. We have our own mobile app, which is also using Moodle's web services, which is quite nice. And because of that, because we have multiple applications that people move around fairly seamlessly, these sort of web developers who look after the corporate site came up with this sort of common design language and a common look and feel that they wanted to apply across all of our different web applications. And this was so that users were more familiar, so that once a user had got familiar with the navigation in one system, then it was easy for them to move around to another. And so when we rebuilt in 2014, we built a new Bootstrap theme. This isn't the best screenshot of it. It's got image sliders and things like that in there, which we tend to turn off. We will put the sliders on at the start of an academic year or when we have something to promote, but the rest of the time we just turn them off because users tend to just want to get down to their stuff. But our theme's now on moodle.org if you want to have a look at that. And this was our infrastructure in 2004, just everything really ran on a live server with a a second server as a failover. When I say everything, it was running Apache, MySQL, PHP, all the files, storage and everything was on this one server early on. That is what it looked like last year. It's probably changed a little bit since then. So we have clusters for Moodle and Mahara and various other bits and pieces. And this is just a high-level overview of our learning environment now. So this would be Moodle here, and then there are various other applications that it links to and are integrated with. And this was the student record system or management information system. And this was the last thing to be integrated because it was the most challenging or the most difficult, and was only really possible because of the construction of this course portal that I mentioned. And ideally this would have been the first thing that we did, but it ended up being the last, but the most significant in terms of the way it changed our approach to Moodle. And so the way this process works, we have BizTalk, which manages services, and that monitors the student record systems. And when it finds new degree modules, as we call them, it sends that information to this course portal, which is a web application. It's actually a subset of our university portal. So our university portal, in my case, if I look at that, it'll tell me how much annual leave I've got left. It will show me recent emails. It pulls in recently accessed Moodle courses. It gives us status updates on various servers, and for students it will show them how many printer credits they've got left, or if they've got overdue library returns, and the course portal was a subset of that. The other thing that this service does is look at enrolments on these courses. So as students are added to courses, or perhaps as they're added to modules, or perhaps leave one module and join another, this detects the changes and sends them here through this Moodle integration piece here. And the other thing that we can see coming down here is a course duplication request. So this is what a lot of people, including ourselves, would refer to as a rollover. So you want to copy the module from 2014-15, and we want to leave that in place for the previous year's students to refer back to. And we want a new copy of that course for the 2015-16 academic year, which the next cohort are enrolled on. And so this is actually, when it says course duplication, I think that's actually pretty much the name of the web service, the Moodle web service it calls. I think it's called Duplicate Course. And if you look at the Moodle web services roadmap, which is linked in the course page for this presentation on iMoot, you'll see that's one in there. And so these enrolments and course duplication requests get queued up, and then Moodle web services are actually used to create the course or duplicate the course and handle the enrolments, and we get back the other way, course verification. Another piece is just direct integration for managing staff on these courses, and the reason is that you may have a management role in here, but not necessarily a management role in Moodle. And so this allows us, for people we know that should be able to allocate roles based on their role within the organisation or within the university, which is something else that the university portal has, then they can just manage editing teachers through here as well as in Moodle. And that takes away some of the aggravation around having to duplicate everybody's role between these two systems. Now, this part I'll refer to a few times later on in the presentation, which is something that we added. So this was all built at the point it was launched, and then we added another web service because of some issues with Turnitin. So if you use Turnitin, it creates kind of a remote instance of an assignment on Turnitin's web service, and if you just duplicate the course, then all of your courses point back at that one Turnitin instance, and we didn't want that. So we created a web service that gets called at the very end of this process, and then once we had that, started to think, well, what else can we do with that? What else can we do at the point a Moodle course is actually rolled over or created? This is just a quick screenshot to give you an idea of what this course portal looks like. It's a big system. I'm not going to go into it in any detail. But from a student's front screen, it shows them the degree course itself and the modules below it, and links into various other bits of information about assessment. And we can see here we've got links into the Moodle courses that are tied to these modules. Something else I'll touch on is that the show hide in Moodle needs to update this system as well now. We don't want student clicking on this Moodle link and then being told that they haven't got access to the Moodle course. And this is just a screenshot of the screens that are used to create Moodle courses. So down here we can see create Moodle course. It will in fact duplicate one. If you want a brand new Moodle course, you choose a template, but usually it's going to be the previous year. We can see here it's automatically suggested last year's module. So it's suggesting the 2014-15 version of the course, which we would roll over to create a 2015-16 copy. And we can either use that, or we can search for any other Moodle course if we need to. And we can also choose the Moodle category. Again, this is suggesting the Moodle category that was used in the previous year. And there are links here at this point. Before you click use this, it will jump into the Moodle course. Or if you're searching here, this is also a hyperlink so that staff can quickly check that they've got the right Moodle course before clicking clone. And once you click clone, within about 20 minutes typically, you'll get an email with a confirmation that the Moodle course has been created and a link to it and some basic advice on going in and completing the setup of your Moodle course. So that's kind of where we ended up at the around this time last year. And so when we rolled this out, the benefits we expected were of course automated rollover and course creation, which saved academic staff a lot of time, automatic student enrolment, and this was a really big driver, the idea that the first time a student logs into Moodle, everything is there. And what I didn't mention in the previous screen is that it actually, Moodle will create the users as well. So I said it will enroll the students, but if the student's new to the university, it will actually create their accounts. So you know, ordinarily within Moodle, you can only assign a role once a user exists, unless you're using CSV upload or something like that. And this really gets around that for new students, which were always a particular problem. And the idea is that the first time a student comes to the university, they get their network login, they go to Moodle, and everything's there for them. All their courses are there the very first time they ever land on Moodle's homepage. We're hoping you would encourage the use of Moodle. I mean, it's used on almost every course now, but because it's now part of a workflow and can be reported on, we're hoping that the last few courses that don't use Moodle would. Course documents can automatically be linked in Moodle. These are documents that may be stored in the course portal. And we knew that it would open the door to future integration. That was another reason for doing it long term. Another big benefit was that we got better visibility of what was happening in Moodle, because it was now very closely aligned with the student record system. So previously we had lots of Moodle courses, but they didn't really bear any resemblance to the degree modules, or certainly not enough resemblance. It's difficult to know what was being used to teach what and when that course should be active or not. So we didn't have the ability to clear things down, which is something else we need to look at, automated clear down of courses at some point. But this turned out to be very significant, the fact that we could start to look around Moodle with a kind of different perspective, really, in terms of understanding what should be there or what that course should have been doing. And so what this increased visibility and student feedback revealed, because we periodically poll staff and students for opinions, saying, you know, how are we doing? What do you like? What don't you like? That kind of thing. What we noticed quite quickly is that students were indeed gaining access to their Moodle courses much earlier, but there was still a lot of problems with them. Assignment dates that hadn't been updated were a big source of complaints. So students were going in and they were seeing the previous year's assignment dates that came through the rollover process. And template information hadn't been replaced, and I've said just like iMoot, because I don't know if there are any still like this, but the iMoot pages have been set up like this, which is a really common method where someone will build a template for a course and they will put in something like edit me would be useful to write a few words here. The problem is if the person doesn't do that, then this is what your students see. And it's one thing for that to happen in iMoot, where it's a very quick-paced and short-lived event, and people will be perfectly forgiving of things like that. But in a degree course that students are putting a lot of time and money into, then we really weren't very happy to see things like that happening in our live Moodle system. And other problems we came across were that courses were hidden or sections were hidden. So people were saying, why can't I access things, or why can't my students see this? A lot of courses were missing the summary. A lot were missing course images, which we wanted to get in because our theme's been designed to make use of them, as have an increasing number of plugins. So just to get the look, improve the look and feel of Moodle, we wanted to get more people to make the effort to do that. This was another interesting one in that course creation dates and start dates were incorrect. And this again derives from the fact that we're using essentially a backup and restore process to roll over, and Moodle's duplicate course feature hooks into those same processes. Now, if you back up and restore a course, the course creation date remains unchanged. It's the original course creation date, as it should be. If you think of it in the context of backup and restore, you're trying to restore the copy of the course that you perhaps lost. But in terms of a rollover process, it doesn't make sense. So this is one of the first things we added to the web service, to actually timestamp these with the point that the course was created, and I'll come on to why that's useful a little bit later. Help information was lacking. That was kind of a legacy of having different Moodle systems and the way the university was structured. So that was something else that we needed to improve. Difficult to navigate, a long-standing complaint in Moodle, although that's improving. But in particular, reliance on inconsistent use of blocks. We could never be entirely sure which blocks were going to be used on a course, and certainly not which position they were going to be in. So trying to make guides for students on how to get around Moodle wasn't particularly easy. Inconsistent course layouts were another source of complaint from students, and have been for a while, because students really want to know where everything is in their course. If they take 3 courses in the first semester of year 1 and they learn where things are in those courses, then in the subsequent courses they do throughout their degree or subsequent modules, they really want everything to be laid out consistently. They want to know where things are, so that the first course they learn to get around, that learning carries forward and is still relevant for everything else they do thereon. We also saw that information was being duplicated between our course portal and Moodle, and particularly people copying and pasting things into HTML blocks or labels, which we didn't really want. So what we did about it, we'll go through some of this in more detail. We built a course checks block to help staff identify and fix problems, a module information resource, so that standard information can be added in a kind of template structure, but is not visible to students until it's completed, to try and get away from this visibility of things like edit me. A module information block that pulls information in from course portal to stop duplication, some centralized help with a site-wide link that we put into our theme. We tried to improve the navigation in our theme. We can see here these 3 items in purple are things that we added to this web service that I mentioned earlier. So set, course creation and start date, automated settings of blocks on rollover, and now most recently setting the course format on rollover to the grid format. And then to support that, because we've just done this. So over the next couple of months, we'll be rolling over around 3,000 courses. So you can imagine 3,000 Moodle courses being converted to all use this grid format. They're going to need some grid images. So we've just added a repository for those that we've started to add some image sets to save staff some time. Another thing that we added in terms of improving user experience was a plugin called Bootstrap Elements, which is on Moodle.org. So this is now on Moodle.org. An older version of this is on Moodle.org. Our theme is on Moodle.org, and this will be shortly as well. I hope to release that one. So the course checks block, which is a block that will actually automatically be enabled now on rollover. It's something we've worked on for a little while now. The version that I'll show throughout this is slightly more featureful than the one on Moodle.org, but the premise behind it was that if something is wrong with Moodle, it should tell you that there's something wrong and it should help you fix it. Now, that's never really going to happen, I don't think, in core Moodle because of the wide variety of different uses Moodle's put to. There's a big difference between using Moodle, for example, in a university and a small training company that might be using it to sell e-learning. And so really this was just our approach, and there are others. So for example, the Open University have a workflow block where you can build very structured workflows, but they have an organizational structure behind that. So they have people in place to actually review and quality assure a course before it's published. But then the OU are a distance provider, which BCU, Birmingham City University, is not a distance provider. Our Moodle courses are there to supplement essentially offline teaching. So again, this is why I can't ever see this necessarily being resolved in core, and why we wrote this block. And a couple of the issues that we started off looking at were things like greyed out or hidden items were too subtle. So some staff didn't realise that their course was hidden, because the only thing that really told them were that the breadcrumbs were greyed out or some of the navigation in the blocks were greyed out. There wasn't really anything that stood out and said your course is hidden, apart from actually another block that's also on Moodle.org that does just that. And that was one of the earlier plugins I looked at. So there was the OU plugin I mentioned. There's one for gold, silver, bronze awards that also tries to improve Moodle quality but relies on a lot of human intervention. And there was one that did this sort of put an alert in very similar to this to say that whether a course was visible or not. And the other problem we realised was that settings were buried several clicks deep. If you look at a Moodle course page and you've got 3 assignments in it, then it doesn't tell you in the page that those assignments might need the dates changing. And this is really where setting the course creation date became very useful, because through our web service, if we set the course creation date and the start date, in fact, on rollover, we know that anything with a date prior to that is incorrect. And so you can see here it's saying that there's an assignment with a due date in 2014. And this link here will go directly into the assignment so that you can edit it. So I'm just looking at Christina's post now. Hi Christina. So Christina's saying, do you have any insight whether the consistent look and feel prevents some instructors trying out new or more innovative things, or can they still do that within the course area without touching blocks? The first thing I'd say is that we have for a long time run several course formats. So we have grid, top column, collapsible topics, and we've really let staff use those and get student feedback on which worked the best for them. So certainly we didn't stop people innovating, and in our Moodle system we're not prescriptive compared to a lot of organisations. This time around we are going to set the course, and there is actually a policy coming from academics that they would like them all to use grid, and we are setting up default blocks, but we're not taking away the academics permissions to go in and change that course format to something else, or in fact stopping them from changing the blocks. If we were going to do that, we could have taken away the capabilities of the role, and we could have gone into Moodle's front page and enabled the blocks site-wide and made them sticky. And we're not doing that, as you can see through this web service. So we're not trying to stop instructors trying out new or more innovative things. If anything, the issue we have is probably with 90% of lecturers that just, you know, they use Moodle, but it's not a core thing necessarily for them. It's not the innovators we have an issue with, to be honest. It's the larger body of lecturers whose Moodle courses really haven't evolved that much since they were first created, and in some cases that's many years back. They may have created their Moodle course and not necessarily gone in and leveraged new features as they were released. So back to this, by setting the creation date and the start date, we can get this kind of alert and a link directly into the assignment in that case. The reason we set both is we've got this plugin running off either or of these dates. I think it runs off the highest date of the two, is because we've released this on Moodle.org. We've done that so that if somebody else uses it and they go in and just manually edit the start date themselves, then this will work for them as well. You can see here, well, we've got a clean course button and an alert. I think I'll move on to the next screenshot to explain this. So clean course, another legacy in some of our courses is that we used to create courses with the Moodle default of 10 sections. So staff would go in, they'd create a Moodle course, it'd have 10 sections, they'd use the first 6 and never delete the last 4 in some cases. So we had an awful lot of Moodle courses that had empty sections. So if that's the case, this clean course button pops up and you can click that and it will delete the empty sections for you. So these are sections that have got no content, haven't been renamed, essentially just as they were originally created. Under this essentials thing or section, these sections auto expand and collapse if there's any issues detected. So we're saying, have you added a course image? Have you updated the course summary? And is guest access disabled? And the reason for disabling guest access in our case is that sometimes if guest access is enabled and then somebody emails a link to a student, they can go into the Moodle course and then wonder why they can't actually post to a forum or something like that. So we wanted to alert people to that fact. And although we have automated enrollments on most of our courses, there are other things like generic courses like research, skills and things like that, where enrollment's just handled through the sort of usual Moodle methods of self-enrollment or things like that. The dates I've already mentioned. Section checks doesn't automatically expand because there are legitimate reasons why you might not want to, for example, add a summary to a section. You might be using a label or something else. But expanding this will give you a very quick overview of your sections in the course, and in particular whether any are hidden, which has been a source of complaint on a couple of occasions. And as we can see here, it tells you it's hidden, and if you click that it will make it visible, and if you click that it will make it invisible. So this is done in the course page, and for us this actually calls another web service and also makes the course visible or invisible in the course portal. So what we did was, we have a specific role called module leader that comes across through our course portal, so we can control the permissions on courses that are created through the course portal, the automated provisioning process. Those users have a different role to those who are working with standalone Moodle courses. So we actually took away the capability to show hide, so that this is the only way they can do it. The reason for that is that there are at least 2 or 3 places in Moodle where you can show hide a course, and without modifying core there wasn't a way to capture that event to send it over the web service. And the version of this that's on Moodle.org, this isn't actually clickable, and some of our users who were evaluating this were actually clicking this notification thinking that it would show hide, so it just made sense to do that. And as we can see here, this block is completely invisible to students, as you would want. You wouldn't want students to see all this. So this is kind of how we've begun trying to approach some kind of a workflow. And in terms of this here, making whether you can make it visible or invisible, it's perfectly feasible to start adding constraints to that, to say that actually you can't make this course visible whilst you have incorrect assignment dates. Another feature in this is just this here. It's nothing but a link to a dates report, which was created by the Open University. And if we just take a look at what this does, so we were actually thinking of building something like this until we saw that Tim Hunt from the Open University had already done it. And what it does is give you one page or one report where you can update all of the dates for a course in a single page. The only problem for us in terms of getting staff to use it was that it was buried under course administration reports dates. So all this does is just give a direct link into there to encourage staff to use it. And as I mentioned, course checks block is available, or an older version of it at least is available for you to take a look at. The other one I mentioned was module information. So we found some staff were copying and pasting information into Moodle HTML blocks, and we realized that we could just extract that automatically through a web service. And we just put that behind a Moodle. So it's really nice if you start using Bootstrap themes that you can start to do things like this with it. So if you click that, it brings a pop-up. In this case, it's sort of just got the module information, but with some of them it'll actually list course documents like module guides and assignment briefs down here. And this can also be set so that it displays the full information in the block here, or you can set it to display the full information for 2 weeks and then it becomes a Moodle. The other one that we've been working on is a module information resource, and we hope to release this as well in the next month or two. But we wanted, like a lot of organisations do, standard information on all courses. And we know from experience that adding this kind of information is problematic because sometimes it gets left and remains visible to students. And we thought that Moodle should really tell staff what there needs to be done, allow us to report on what needs to be done, and the use of a resource type gives us a better chance of that than, say, the use of a label, and only show the correct information to students. So we don't ever want our students to see this. And so we've been working on this module information resource. So just like any other resource, you pick it in the activity chooser. This screenshot is going to be a bit small because it's quite long. There are 5 items that we're asking for, and it's actually configurable through an admin section. So in our case, we want a welcome message, and then the second one is learning outcomes, and there are 5 sections. And we still have this text like add your welcome message here, or copy and paste the module learning outcomes here. And this is configured by an academic who's got admin rights. So they can go into the admin section for this plugin and they can set up whatever they want for this site-wide, which is indeed what they've done. What that displays like when you save it in the course, or when you add that resource type to the course, is something like this. So we can see this text, add your welcome message here, and we know that that information hasn't been updated, which is why we've got these red alerts. You can also see that, as is mentioned here, these are actually collapsible topics, collapsible sections, again using Bootstrap. We'll probably add a feature to add icons to these and need to make it look a bit nicer. So this here is saying, of course, it's giving staff a notification in red to say that they need to update it. But a key point is that this will remain invisible to students until it's completed. So a student would never see this. They would never see please update this section. They would never see add your welcome message. They would see nothing until it was completed. And this would be what a student would see once it was completed, which is just the standard information in toggle. So welcome, learning outcomes, instruction, schedule, tutor details are the sections that our academics wanted to add. So this is another plugin that we released. It's kind of related to the previous one in that has the same collapsible sections. When I said we'll probably add icons, it would be this feature. So once we had a Bootstrap theme, we looked at what Sussex University did. If any of you are familiar with the work, they've presented at several Moodle Moots in the UK, and their Moodle system's called Study Direct. And they had things like collapsible sections in their system. And we realized that we could do that quite easily using Bootstrap. And so essentially what this Bootstrap Elements plugin is an enhanced label almost. It's label wrapped with some Bootstrap code and some support for Fonts Awesome. So you go in, you add a Bootstrap Elements resource type, you give it a title, you put some content in, you choose the element type, whether you want a modal pop-up or whether you want to embed it in the page, either as what we just call an enhanced label or block quote, and you can pick a Font Awesome icon. So if you click this, then you get this pop-up, and you can see here I've just searched for heart and it's found 2 Font Awesome icons that match that description, and I've chosen that one. Again, you can find that on Moodle.org. It works with our theme. Hopefully, with a little bit of work, it should work on most Bootstrap themes. And I've kind of introduced that at that point because another thing that we really needed was help information, better help information for staff and students. Now, so a feature we added in our theme actually is that if you drop a link in the section in the theme, it will automatically render this for you. And we bounce this through a redirect script. Our integration, our authentication plugin has a person type, which will either be staff or student. So this goes to a redirect link. Staff get sent one way, students get sent the other. This is a quick view of what the student information looks like. And this is a kind of thing that we've got for staff. And this is what the Bootstrap Elements plugin does. So you can see here it's got a title with an icon and then some content here. And the same plugin has been used to create this modal. So if I went in to edit this particular resource and changed it from enhanced label to modal, then it would suddenly become a button. And this is another view of our help pages. This one is actually a guide for our staff on how to use this Bootstrap Elements plugin. So again, it's got a label above using that plugin with an icon, and below use the same plugin to create a modal, which in this case brings a pop-up with a video tutorial. And so this plugin really is quite nice. I mean, it came in really useful for the sort of help pages and things like that, because you can pack a lot more information into a smaller, more concise space. This is just another sort of overview of what that Bootstrap Elements plugin allows you to do in the course. Same sort of thing, using labels in sections, a modal here, or just any other activity or resource mixed in with that. And I just thought I'd throw this in. If you haven't if you're looking to build help pages or help information within your Moodle site and you're in the English speaking world, then grabbing these is quite a nice idea. From learnmoodle.net, I copied the text out of book, Mary Coutry's book, which she said we could do, and kind of just put the Learn Moodle series into our Moodle system. They're very basic, but for a new user who's never touched Moodle, it's a really good starting point. So as mentioned before, we did some work on improving navigation, the kind of things that students used to say to us, where I can't find my content or their courses because everything tends to be tucked away in the navigation block, which students didn't really take to particularly well. All my courses are different, so inconsistent layouts and inconsistent use of blocks, which we've mentioned before. Where are my assignments? Where's my feedback? So this used to happen fairly frequently. If for any reason the notification emails of a student receiving feedback on an assignment failed, they really seem to struggle to go back in and find it themselves. Similarly, where are my grades or what's happening on my courses? These are the kind of things students came back with. So again, using our theme, we tried to improve that. So we essentially took a lot of this stuff from Essential and other themes. So Essential had a site-wide link into My Home or Dashboard and events, and this would be My Courses in any other theme. For us, we've called it My Sites because for us a course is a degree course. But essentially this is My Courses and gives you an expandable list, as many other themes now do. And then we added this one here, really to try and help us explain to students how to find things like, how do I get to my assignments for a course? And so by using these two links, you could mouse over here and go into any one of your courses, and then mouse over here, click into this and see a complete list of your assignments. And this is really just a copy of the, or not a copy, it hooks into the existing core Moodle block. I think it's called the activities block. So that's all we're really doing, is taking what was previously in the activities block and making it available everywhere in our theme. And so we can say to staff, to students, you know, once you're in your course, just go here, click assignments. We know that this is always there and can show students how to use that quite easily. Another one was trying to improve notifications and also to clean up blocks. Because our theme is only 2-column, having lots of blocks isn't great, or lots of blocks that take up a lot of space. And this is actually all based on something else from Sussex University, who added an activity feed into their theme rather than a block. And we're really trying to, at that point, which I think they did this in maybe 2011, they did it in Moodle 1.9, I think. Trying to sort of learn a bit more from social media and things like Twitter to give students a kind of a status update of what was going on across the Moodle site. So if this is added to the Moodle homepage or My Home, it shows you things that are going on across the entire site. You can add it in at course level as well, in which case it will show you just what's going on that course. The nice thing about this, as opposed to the Moodle recent updates block, I think it is the core one, is that it's lazy loading and it remains within it's scrollable, so it never kind of spews right the way down the page. It's kind of contained in a nice containable area. And this one here, upcoming events, essentially they just improved the existing Moodle one, so that again it was scrollable. It doesn't start to go down the page, and it incorporates course or user profile images. And I don't think staff have found that so useful. We've had some good feedback from students on that. A specific example I could give actually of how I found it useful is that these messages here are actually coming from forums, which we use to actually discuss Moodle changes with our key users. And on more than one occasion I've picked up an email on my phone in the morning, an email that's been generated from the forum subscription, read it on my phone and thought, right, I'll reply to that when I get to my desk. And then I've arrived at work and I've opened my email client up on my desktop and it's already marked as read, and I just skip it, you know, or I just miss it because I've read that mail on my phone. It's no longer showing up as unread on my desktop, and I've forgotten about it. And then I've gone into Moodle and I've seen the post here somewhere in this feed, and it's reminding me then to go in and reply to that or to do things. So that is actually useful to have that. And again, that's on Moodle.org. We didn't build this. City University London built these blocks, and there's a link to those in the Moodle course page for this presentation. Yeah, Christine is just saying she liked the fact that you can remove items from the list, which you can. And no, you don't think you can do that with the default Moodle block. This is essentially using JavaScript. I think the Moodle default one just spits everything out in HTML. So this, as said, is lazy loading. It will just keep scrolling down and you can remove items. This is just a screenshot of a segment of our Moodle homepage, which is the other place we have this. So these aren't the best images. There's a lot of test courses that I have here. But our theme loads up a default tile, which is kind of a university logo. But we really wanted staff to start loading up the course images because they appear in here, and it's quite good for students to be able to get more of a visual cue as to which course activity is coming from. So this is another reason why we've got the course image as one of the things in our course checks block. Another plugin, this isn't ours, but it was released a month or two back, is a My Feedback report. So there are a couple of things like this available on Moodle.org, but this seemed the best for our needs, which essentially just gives students one page they can go to and they can view all of their assignments and links to all of their feedback. It's quite nice in that it's searchable. It just uses jQuery to search, but you can search on terms from multiple columns. And we're going to link it here. I've highlighted this feedback link. At the moment, that actually links to a feedback form where we ask people to leave us feedback. So we're actually going to get rid of that, and we'll put something up here, My Feedback. And again, any student, whoever says, where's my feedback, we say, well, go here. The other thing we'd actually like to do is to get a block for the My Home or dashboard page that perhaps showed you the last 3 items of feedback, and then a link, view all feedback, that just came into this report. Similar to how we've kind of linked our course checks block into Tim Hunt's dates report, do something similar. So really kind of trying to see how we can fit in and use other people's plugins. You know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel as such or do everything our own way. We're very much trying to find ways to use stuff that's already out there, perhaps enhance that or incorporate that into our own work. So in terms of standardizing courses, I think I've mentioned that we reset blocks. Well, we're now going to remove all the blocks from the course and then reapply standard blocks, which will include course checks and another one that we've written internally, library information. And one of the reasons for this is that, as I mentioned earlier, some of our Moodle courses were originally created maybe 8 years ago, perhaps, maybe more, and have just been rolled over, and we have things like RSS feeds in there that shouldn't really be in there anymore. Broken RSS feeds can actually cause a real problem in Moodle. HTML blocks with old information, and so we really just want to wipe them all clean, start with a much cleaner course setup. If people still want that information, they can add it again, but by default they're going to be rolled over with the common course format and common blocks, and if staff don't change that, that's the way they'll remain. This really, it's a very simple thing to do, but I just thought I'd mention it because we're converting so many courses to grid by default, then, and we're talking about 3,000 courses, maybe more, then we just added a repository for images. And I think we'll probably rename this and add some folders in there for course images as well. And so academics are just contributing these. Most of them are just generated by PowerPoint. They create their images from slides in PowerPoint, and then in PowerPoint you can save as JPEG, and it will spit out, you know, every slide as a new image for you. And these are really easy to set up. I think it's under Moodle data /repositories /grid images in this case. You create a folder, FTP files up to that, and then in Moodle you add an instance of a file repository. It takes 5 minutes to set up. So if you want, you know, to try and make more standardized images available, either for using grid or just course images, then we're hoping that will save staff a lot of time and encourage them to actually do what's being asked. So that's just a screenshot of grid using, obviously they would typically choose one set. So this set is early years, which is a set being used in education, and this is being used by the conservatoire, one of our faculties that works with musicians. So hopefully students will get a bit more of a themed and prettier looking Moodle course. So in terms of the next steps for us, then we really try and work around a sort of process of continuous improvement across everything we do. So there will be updates to certainly updates to the course checks block. which we'll be releasing shortly. And as I mentioned, we hope to release that module information block. We want to try and build management reports around course setup so that team leaders or senior academics can actually start to view reports of how many degree modules in their section now have Moodle courses, and of those Moodle courses, how many actually meet the kind of standard that we're looking for in terms of the basic checks that we're able to apply, and really so that they can get an overview of what's happening or maybe intervene if they need to. So we want to automate more things on rollover as well. So we actually want the ability to add or remove resources, activities or resources automatically as well. So this year we're going to remove and add blocks. We want to be able to do that for resources, particularly things that we want to run out. We use an awful lot of plugins in our Moodle. Installing them is pretty simple. Removing them or running them out is more of a challenge. We'd like to be able to apply templates more effectively. So City University of London, with their rollover process, which works entirely in Moodle, they seem to have the ability to not only choose a course to roll over, but a template. So I haven't spoken to them about this, but I'm guessing they may actually clone a template and then import all of the content into it from another Moodle course. So almost merging, it looks like they're actually able to merge two Moodle courses, one with the template for the look and feel and the other with the content. So we're going to explore that. We also want to put more of these tools or more of the interface into Moodle, so add web services into the course portal so that more can be done natively in Moodle, and instead of it being a completely push system from a student record system, it can also work on a kind of pull system from Moodle. But I would say the intention was always that it would be a push system, because we're essentially trying to push the structure of the student record system into Moodle. And another little bit of integration will be to integrate degree courses with Moodle sites. So these aren't necessarily used for teaching, but a degree level course might have information on careers advice and industry specific information and discussion areas that relate more to the degree rather than the taught module. And a really big one, and one of the most powerful, would be to integrate assignments with our student record system so that we can get grades back out of Moodle automatically or export grades. But also we have in another system the ability to generate cover sheets, and we'd like to get those into Moodle. So we're thinking about maybe assignment submission plugin for ModAssign could be used for that. And the reason for that is that these actually have barcode tracking. So this system, as I said, it is an existing system, and it was built when most assignments were still handed in. They were still handing in paper copies. We now use, the aim now is 100% e-submission through Moodle. So we get tens of thousands of assignments coming through Moodle now. But there are still things that we can't submit electronically. So physical items would be one example, a piece of artwork. Very large files like source files for animation and things like that tend to get handed in on CD-ROMs just because they're such massive files. So there will always be some physical hand-in. So we'd like to try and hook this system into Moodle so that within Moodle a student could go into their Moodle course or into their Moodle assignment, print off the cover sheet, attach the cover sheet to whatever physical item they were handing in. That item would be scanned and that would mark the assignment as being submitted in Moodle, and then staff can grade and release it as normal. So those are the kind of things we're thinking about for the future. So that's it. I think I'm just looking at what Christina said, talking about an image repository. Yeah, I mean, as I said, setting up those image repositories are really easy things to do, and we don't have an issue with licenses because they're being generated. And some staff have actually gone off and found sort of Creative Commons images on the web ones that I saw that was really nice, they were just black and white images, and then in PowerPoint they just added a coloured banner across the bottom with the section name, and they generate those quite quickly in PowerPoint, so it's quite nice. I don't know if anyone else has got any other questions. Nope. Okay, well, I hope that was useful to you. As I said at the beginning, it's a bit of an eclectic mix of things. You know, it's perhaps not as structured as some of the other iMoot presentations, which can be more specific. For us, this has just been generally a year of trying to improve student experience, really, and all these things in one way or another sort of lean into that. So that's kind of there was a method to the madness, and there is a definite direction, but if you took each one of these things and looked at them on their own, they might, in a sense, not seem that related. Thanks, Christina. Have we got feedback from the faculty since making these changes, and have they helped them? Well, no, because we're going to open this process up for the rollover next week. Now, when we rolled this out last year in 2014 was the first year that this rollover process was used within the university, and it was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, because Moodle had been completely rebuilt because of a reorganisation, and we'd automatically migrated all of the courses in, but not the roles. We deliberately didn't bring over all the user data from the old systems because it wasn't very good, and that meant that we were introducing a new process for this automated rollover, told them that essentially they had to use it, and they were rolling over things that they couldn't actually access necessarily because they hadn't got the roles on the course. And Moodle, there were a lot of issues with the student record system not having correct information in that came to light, and it was just a bit of a crazy time. And what we said to people at that time was, you know, just stick with it, because next year you will really see the benefit from this, or in coming years. So actually we're hoping that next week we'll be able to redeem ourselves in terms of people actually seeing that this was the sort of torment we put them through last year was actually worth doing. I think they will appreciate it this year, because now, as you saw in the screenshot I shared earlier, they just click duplicate course. It's going to automatically suggest last year's course, and in 95% of cases they will simply click clone. They won't have been in the situation of cloning the wrong Moodle course that they were last year, so it should be pretty easy. And we're hoping that sort of the things we've put into automatically make some of the changes that they're being asked to. So it's not me that's driving this thing towards standard Moodle look and feel. It's senior academics. All we've really done there is to say, actually, well, we can make some of these changes for you, and you know, we can give you some tools to help you with that. Do we have shared areas for curriculum areas rather than all classes? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but I can tell you one thing that we've had to do. We have kind of a many-to-many relationship between our student record system and Moodle. Yeah, meta courses. So this is a good example. So we had some Moodle courses that were shared between different SITS modules, and they perhaps shouldn't have been. So what we've actually suggested there is, so these can be modules that have the same learning outcomes but different specialisms. A good example would be the School of Education. So they deliver degree courses to people going into teaching, and so they have departments sort of like early years or primary secondary education, and students in those areas take a very similar course, but within it they may specialise in maths, English, music. So whichever subject they actually are teaching or planning to go into teach, they have separate areas for those. But the core content is very much the same. The core content about pedagogy and class control and things like that. So what we've done there is say we'll create very small Moodle sites just for your assessments or your assignments, which are linked to the modules, and then use meta courses to link up to the generic content. So we might have a number of small Moodle courses for the assignments and one big Moodle course with all the shared content in it. So I don't know if that answers your question, Kay, but certainly meta courses are part of this, yeah.
Hello, Gareth. Sorry, Jeremy. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think that's it. So if you want to wind it up.
Yeah, thank you, Gareth, for the iMoot team. Thank you very much. Still, in second time, lots of information. So thank you once again for presenting a second time and for such an informative presentation.
Okay, well, thanks, Gareth, and thanks to those of you that made it to the end. And I might see you around iMoot.